welcome back to the third instalment of my video build diary for my Stone Roses tribute build. And it's based again, as I've said, on this great kit from Pitbull Guitars, an RC1. Now since the last instalment, what I've been doing is sanding the neck and the body up to 400 grit. I plan to fill the pores with a slurry of Timbermate today, but you know, I like to prepare the body up to 400 grit before I do that. It's looking really nice now. That furry feeling that basswood typically has when it comes out of the factory has finally disappeared. Surface is looking nice and flat. The end grain is looking nice and smooth and even. And the neck, well, you know, these necks start out feeling really nice because of the, you know, the nice maple you get, but it's feeling even smoother than before. So having done that, it's now time to do the pore filling, but let's just have a quick recap of how I got to this stage. Well, how awesome was that? I love sanding. I could stand here and watch it all day. But we've got to get on and fill the pores of this wood. You might have noticed during the footage that I raised the grain at 360 grit. And to do that I use methylated spirits. You can use water, you can use alcohol. I find that alcohol is better because, well, for one thing, it dries quicker and lets you get on to the other stages of finishing. But also it doesn't, it kind of reduces the risk of the wood swelling. The idea of raising the grain is to, you know, to kind of pre-prepare the grain for accepting a wet finish. Because when you put any kind of wet finish, whether it's dye or, you know, even paint, the wood absorbs a bit of the, you know, the water in the finish. And what happens is those grains that you've chopped off during sanding that are sitting on the very top of the wood, they swell up with the wet finish, and the very ends of those grains kind of sit up a little bit, and they make the finish, they make the wood feel really rough. So the idea is to get those grains to pre-absorb a bit of liquid, and then to finally just take them off with a, you know, really fine application of sandpaper or whatever. I've seen other people in other videos take the grain off with you know, a rough cheesecloth or something like that. But I just tend to use the same grain, the same grade of sandpaper that I used you know, before raising the grain. So I have to raise it, well, I don't have to, but I really like to raise the grain again before I fill the pores. So let's get on and do that now. Okay, so raising the grain is a very straightforward process. I mean, basically we're just going to try and get a bit of liquid into the very surface of the wood. We don't want to drown it, but we want to give enough liquid so that, you know, the grains can absorb some. I typically use, you know, a bit of t-shirt. Of course, you know, a black t-shirt is always best. That'll give you the best, more cred when you finished your project. Heavy metal t-shirt, even better, you know. So anyway, I just get a bit of metho on the rag and, you know, just get it in there. If you can't see the water on the top or the liquid on the top of the wood, then you haven't got enough, because if you can't see it, you know, it's not going to be enough to soak in. Okay, that's all we have to do. Now you can already start to feel those grains sticking up. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry now, and come back once it's dry. We'll take the tops off all the grains that have swollen up. Yep. Okay. Let's wait about 10 minutes, and that's all we'll need. Okay, so we've let the wood dry for about 10-15 minutes. There's a heady scent of methylated spirits in the air, and I can now feel the grains on this wood. Even though I've done this once before at 360. You know, there's still plenty of grains willing to absorb that liquid and stand up. Particularly on the end grain, of course. since, you know, you know, you get more grains that aren't laying parallel with the surface on the end. Okay, so I can feel all of those there. So now all I'm going to do is sand those grains off, and I'm just going to use a small piece of 400 sandpaper. Just take it easy, very light sanding with that paper. So I don't want to go too deep. I'm really just taking off those grains. You know, I'm not pushing at all, applying no pressure. Okay, just feel whether it needs a bit more. Okay, that's feeling really nice and smooth now. Okay, so I'll just continue on and take all those grains off on the end grain and on the top, and you'll see me in a minute. We'll get stuck into this pour filling. Hey guys, well, I've finished the sanding. Now it's time to get some Timbermate into the pores of this bad boy. You can see what I've also done before I start to put the Timbermate on is I've actually taped off the binding, and the reason I've done that is because you know, in the past, if there's any little scratches or any marks on your binding that will accept some of the Timbermate, you'll have a hard time getting that back out of your binding. So I just find it's a lot easier just to tape it off. And just as an aside, any kind of masking that I do, I tend to use this 3M 471 vinyl tape. It's a little hint I picked up from Sully's Guitars, you know, John Sullivan on YouTube. Well worth the investment to, you know, anytime you want to mask something off and get a really nice crisp line, this 471 tape is awesome. Anyway, I've masked it all off, and now I'm going to create a slurry out of this Timbermate. I've got maple coloured Timbermate, which I find goes really well in the basswood, and I've just got a little bit of water, about a centimetre and a half of water in my container there. I'm just going to dump some Timbermate in there, mix it up to a slurry, consistency of, you know, runny peanut butter, maybe, I don't know, choose your own metaphor. And then we'll get it on here and try and squeeze it into the pores. So let's get to it. Okay, so you can see I've got my water in here. Just going to dump some Timbermate in. It's great stuff, water soluble. Okay, if it's a bit hard in there, just put a bit of water in and grab some out. But I'm not having any trouble today. I'm going to put in quite a lot. Okay. And get it mixed up. It's a bit of a pain to mix up to begin with, but you shouldn't have much trouble in the end. Okay, so you can see we've got a slurry now. You know, it's thick, and we can now start putting that on. Okay, so it's all been mixed up now. I've got my slurry. Now all I'm going to do is get some of this into the pores with a paintbrush. I'm just going to paint it on, and then I'm going to use a plastic scraper to try and scrape it, well, to get off the excess for a start, but to try and get it down into the pores of the wood. So, you know, it's a pretty easy process. Just get the Timbermate on there. Okay, it dries pretty quick, so you've got to be quick. Just get it on. You know, try and squash it into the pores as you go. Get it in there. Okay, you can do this more than once if you think there's any areas you haven't filled. Okay, get that in there, and then go across the grain to make sure you're actually pushing it in and not just digging it back out. Okay, get our scraper, and just try and push it into the grain. But don't push too hard, you don't want to scratch your wood. Okay, I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to go with the grain, just to make sure I've got it all in there. Okay, just watch out for the edge. Really don't want any drips if I can help. Oh no, lots of drips there. Okay. Okay, so that's all done. I've got my Timbermate on. Now all I have to do now is let that dry. Make sure it dries completely. In the meantime, I can just take my slurry of Timbermate, chuck it back into the container, my Timbermate container. It's completely reusable. I might just let the water evaporate off it just a little bit before I put the lid back on the container. Now all I'm going to do is, once it's dry, sand it back, basically back to where I was with the bare wood. And I'm going to sand it back using the current grade of paper I'm up to, so 400 in this case. And that's it really. Not much more to say. I'll show you once the Timbermate's dry how well the tape has masked the edge, and that'll be it. Anyway, see you next time.